Good morning. So, World Sleep Day is Sunday. It's a global reminder that we are actually chronically undersleeping. And so, you know what? I actually have been wondering this myself. And because sleep is such an important part of our health, though if you've seen my videos before, I really don't like to focus on tracking, but I actually got an aura ring because I want to know the data. It's one of the things that we can improve on, and it's one of the things that I think is one of the most important things about our health, and I'll get into why it's really important. I will say, though, that sometimes trying too hard to sleep can actually be part of the problem, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So I'm Dr. Jen. Welcome to Friday Morning Live with Dr. Jen, Joyful Medicine. This is where evidence-based lifestyle medicine means joy, culture, inclusivity, and connection. So let's get into it. So I really want to emphasize how important sleep is, especially if you have a metabolic disease. Often we think that sleep is something we'll do later. Oh, we can catch up on it. Oh, it's not a problem. But you know what? Truthfully, it's not a passive thing. Our body is actually doing its deepest work when we sleep. And it is so important to make sure that we are protecting our sleep at all costs. You know that insulin sensitivity resets overnight, so even one bad night can actually impair glucose metabolism. So if you're struggling with blood sugar, with diabetes, with prediabetes, this is really something that you need to think about. Cortisol. Poor sleep actually elevates that morning cortisol spike, which increases fat storage, which worsens again insulin resistance. It increases cravings. It increases inflammation. It affects our hunger hormones. Our ghrelin goes up, leptin goes down, so you're less able to, avoid those cravings, and it actually makes you hungrier, right? You're neurologically hungrier the next day. I know I've experienced this myself when I'm on call or I've had a bad night, the next day you're ravenous, right? You can't get enough food. And that is physiologic, it's biology. You can't fight your biology. And it's really important to recognize that. In addition, the GLP-1 agonists out there are actually exploiting a natural system, and that natural GLP-1 secretion is tied to our sleep quality. So, again, if you're sleeping poorly, this natural GLP-1 system is impaired and it's not doing what it needs to do to improve our hunger, satiety, insulin functioning, metabolism. So, this is really, really important. So really the thing is, the key thing I want you to think about is that if you are doing all of the things, if you're eating well, you're moving daily, but you're still stuck, this could be the key lever. If your sleep is impaired, this is one thing that you cannot ignore. So I will say, okay, I mentioned how important it is, right? We know that we need our sleep, but worrying about getting that sleep can be just as detrimental. So this is really something to think about. So I'm going to give you some tips about what to do to help sleep better, but just something to think about. If we're tracking our sleep obsessively, if you are getting in bed and you're like, I gotta go to sleep, I know I need to sleep, all of these things can actually make it worse. So if you are finding that you're in bed and you're tossing and turning, it's actually better to get out of bed. And our nervous system responds. Our mind and our body are connected. So the more nervous or anxious you are about something, the worse it's going to be because you're sending those stress hormones throughout the body, and your body is sensing that as needing to be more alert. So you need to get out of that stress cycle in order to support sleeping well. And so, again, it's a nervous system regulation problem. It's not a sleep hygiene problem. If you're worried about your sleep, then it's something that you need to, again, take a different look. And that, my whole thing about having the Aura Ring is that it's something that I can have. Part of why I got it is because, if I mentioned before, is that I don't like this obsession with tracking that we have, like counting everything and measuring every single little thing. And so the Aura Ring is great because it's like a passive thing, and I can go and look at the data at a later time, but I'm not obsessing about checking my steps or, worrying about, my heart rate or whatever, all those things that we can measure and that we have the data on now in our phones and our technology and our things. But instead of that, I can look at it down the line without really worrying about it. And so the goal with your bedtime is really creating a safe, comfortable environment, which we'll talk about. So, what actually helps us sleep better? So, I will say that the most important thing about sleep is what you do in the morning when you wake up. So, ideally, you want to get up, you want to it be in daylight first thing in the morning, like within that first 30 minutes. If you're something you're struggling with sleep, one of the most important things to do is to help set your circadian rhythm naturally. And our circadian rhythm responds to blue light. And so that daylight, those daylight hours, even if the sun's not out, our body responds to that daylight. So getting outside or getting in front of an unfiltered window and seeing the daylight, looking at the horizon, that helps set your circadian rhythm. So it's setting you up for sleep that night. Another thing is exercise. So when we exercise throughout the day, then our body kind of releases some of that tension, which is another important thing, that stress. But also it lets our body know, okay, we had a busy day. It's okay to wind down now. Um, things to remember, yeah, if you moving too close to bedtime can be, not the best. So you don't want to have a vigorous workout within a couple of hours of bedtime, but having a vigorous workout during the day or a nice walk, a nice gentle stretch before bed is okay, but don't want to have your heaviest workout right before bed. So definitely moving throughout the day is really important. So setting your room up, your environment up for success. So setting up your bedroom to make sure that it's cool. We sleep better with a temperature that's in the 60s, 68, 65 to 68 is good. You want to make sure that it's quiet. Especially if you're sensitive to sound. I personally can sleep through anything, but if you're sensitive to sound, if you wake to sound or sound bothers you, maybe consider getting a sound machine or something like that. Earplugs are good too. Um, Light. This is another important thing. So again, like seeing the daylight during the day, getting out in that blue light during the day before bed, you want to make sure the light is dim. So you want to make sure you're avoiding those blue screens. So cell phones, TV, all of those things need to be away at least an hour. But ideally 2 hours before bedtime is the best. But also keeping your bedroom dim. So if you're going to read before bed, make sure you use like a light that's just focused or just not overhead lighting. You want to have light that's lower so that again it's telling your body, okay, this is time for bed. Having some kind of wind down routine. So taking a warm bath or a warm shower is great because it sets your body temperature up for sleep. But maybe it's having a cup of tea, chamomile, lavender. Those are great supplements for sleep. Actually, chamomile is a great calming, has great calming property. But letting your body know that it's time. So wind down, put the phone away. Maybe you read before bed, but having some kind of routine. Everybody's routine is different. I personally like to read before I go to bed. So reading before bed, journaling before bed. If you're somebody that your mind is racing or you're really busy during the day, so something to wind down. Sometimes journaling can be very helpful, very effective, especially if you find that you're waking up or unable to go to bed because your mind is racing. So writing down what's on your mind, writing down what happened during the day, writing down the best thing that happened during the day. I love that one because what that does is it bathes your brain in those happy hormones, which gives your body that sense of calm. And that also will help support sleep if that's something that you struggle with. So gratitude journaling, again, writing down the best thing, brain dump before you go to bed, something like that. Reading, quiet meditation. I've been lately loving this, a little yoga nidra before bed. It's very calming. Sometimes if you find that you get in bed and you are, really agitated or really tense, sometimes like a calming meditation or a um, body relaxation technique where you tighten and release your muscles from head to toe all the way down, that can be very effective in putting your body to sleep. Sometimes I know, like, if I have a late shift at work and I come home and I'm like revving to go, even though normally I'm ready at bed at 9:30, I'm ready to go to sleep. Sometimes I'm really revving to go. Doing that is really a great way to like put your body to sleep. It tires your body out and puts you to sleep. So I didn't talk about it's important to keep the same and uh, sleep and wake time. If ideally you want to sleep 7 to 9 hours every night, that's the recommended. Everybody has a different variation. The quality of the sleep matters though. So you shouldn't force yourself to go to bed or stay to a certain time if you find that you're not getting good quality sleep. It's better to stick to a regular routine, but you don't want to be tossing and turning because the quality of your sleep really does matter. So keeping the same sleep wake time is important. We often feel that, oh, I'll make up for sleep, on the weekends. Oh, I had a busy week. I'll make up for sleep later. But that actually works against you. That circadian rhythm that I mentioned in the beginning, you want to make sure that you keep that same sleep wake cycle so your body knows when to release those hormones. If by your body knows by your circadian rhythm that this is time for bed or time for waking. So keeping that same rhythm is important. Sometimes if you are up a little bit later at night, okay, but that morning wake time is vital, keeping that same wake time. Very important. Other things that are important, so I said setting up your sleep environment. Other things that you may do during the day that may impair your sleep is something to think about is that having caffeine. So I love my morning cup of coffee, but something to think about is if you are sensitive to caffeine, is that you don't want to have caffeine after midday. The half-life of caffeine can be 8 to 12 hours. So if that's something that you're sensitive to, then cutting out that afternoon coffee. So keeping your coffee early in the day, nothing after midday. Um, Alcohol is another common thing. So if you are consuming alcohol, keep in mind that though it may help you fall asleep, it's going to affect the quality of your sleep. So often you'll find that you fall asleep quickly, but then maybe you wake up in the middle of the night. So that quality of sleep is so important because you want to make sure that you are getting that deep sleep, you're getting your REM sleep, you're going through all of the sleep cycles. And if it's interrupted, then your sleep quality is not there. And all of those reparative processes that we talked about earlier are not able to do what they need to do, particularly for your brain, which is one of the most important. Obviously, the most important system in your body, but your brain really needs that sleep time to do all of the recovery that it needs to do, the cleanup that it does while you're sleeping. So alcohol can really affect your sleep quality. Um, so having some kind of wind down, keeping your same sleep wake cycle, exercising during the day, getting out in blue light in the morning, these are all the keys to having quality sleep. And I have to say that if you are struggling with sleep, then it's something to talk to your healthcare provider about because sometimes you do need a sleep study to assess your sleep, or sometimes you just need a little sleep aid for a short period of time. I want to talk about that though. So often, a lot of us are on using melatonin or other supplements to sleep. Excuse me. Chamomile, fine. That's not going to affect your hormonal systems. But I will say, chronic melatonin use can be detrimental. Ideally, what you want to be doing, is setting up your own body's natural sleep system. So these things I talked about are really the most important thing in setting the tone for good sleep. If you're chronically using melatonin, then melatonin has an effect beyond sleep, right? It affects the other hormonal regulation within your body. So it's not something that you want to depend on long term. Here and there, okay, but it's not something that you want to need every day. So again, it's something to talk to your healthcare provider about. So again, sleep is metabolic medicine. I can't say enough about how much sleep has the effect that it has on all of our systems in our body, but particularly our metabolism. So I work with women on helping people reverse their reverse diabetes, improve insulin sensitivity, and the things I talk about all the time are stress and sleep. Sleep is a stressor for your body. So these two things, which are often ignored, are probably the most powerful levers in improving metabolic health. So to that end, I am doing a 5-day challenge to improve your natural GLP-1 system. We have this natural system in our body that normally works really well, but with modern society, with the stress, with our schedules, with our eating patterns, with our lack of sleep, all of these things that have effect on this system, but there are ways that we can enhance it. And it's a 5-day daily, every day there is an educational piece, there is a community support, there are journals and summaries to go with the challenge. So it's really a pretty detailed challenge. You'll have everything you need to move forward and carry that forward to help support your natural GLP-1 system, which if you're on GLP-1s, on a GLP-1 agonist at this time, this can still be very helpful for you because ideally, you want to do everything you can to enhance your natural systems because everything is connected, and when we can support it naturally, it only is going to enhance your health overall and for the long term. So that 5-day challenge. The link is in the comments. And if again, come back here every Friday morning at 9 a.m. I do different health topics, talk about joyful medicine because joy and medicine are not separate. They are uh, dependent on each other. You know, we have to be healthy to be joyful, and joyful approach to health is what makes it sustainable. So, Friday Morning Live with Dr. Jen, thank you so much for joining me. And feel free to comment or ask your questions along the way. And I'll be back here to answer them. So, see you next Friday at 9 a.m. Have a great weekend.